Hazel, I require your immediate, undivided attention. A situation of grave importance has arisen.
A sharp intake of breath. JD, what is it? Are you okay? Is everything all right? My heart just jumped into my throat.
My profound apologies if I caused undue alarm. I merely wished to ascertain the present whereabouts of the television remote control.
A beat of stunned silence, then a laugh of disbelief. You are asking me about the TV remote? Right now, in that tone. I thought the house was on fire.
I was simply employing a heightened register.
You were employing the register of an emergency broadcast system. And last week, we made you a promise.
We told you that formal English and polite English are two entirely different animals, that you can sound incredibly formal and still come across as utterly rude.
And that you can be completely relaxed, even casual, and still sound wonderfully respectful. JD just proved the first half of that point perfectly, without even trying.
I was trying quite a lot, actually. Welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Oxford. I am JD.
And I am Hazel. And today we are diving deep into one of the most crucial distinctions in the English language, the chasm between sounding formal and sounding polite. Because if you have ever been in a professional situation, an email, a meeting, a conversation with someone you really wanted to impress, and you instinctively reached for the most sophisticated, high-level vocabulary you could find, this episode is for you.
Because here is the secret that most English courses never quite get around to telling you. Politeness is not about vocabulary. It is not about sentence length. It is not about reaching for therefore and I wish to inquire and at your earliest convenience.
No, politeness is about how the other person feels when you speak to them. Full stop. It is about connection, not complexity.
And formality? Formality is about register. It is about the level of language you choose. And those two things, register and how someone feels, can move completely independently of each other.
Which is why you can walk into a meeting and say, with perfect grammar and impeccable vocabulary, something that makes everyone in the room feel slightly intimidated, or subtly dismissed, or, as I just experienced, genuinely alarmed about a television remote.
Right. So let us properly dissect this. We are going to look at three things today. First, how formal language, stripped of warmth, can accidentally sound cold, or even downright aggressive. Second, how incredibly casual language, when infused with the right warmth signals, sounds completely respectful and professional. And third, the actual practical tools that native speakers deploy to hit that perfect sweet spot. Not too stiff, not too relaxed, just right.
Let us start with formal gone wrong. And I want to give you some concrete, real-world examples here, because I think the most useful thing we can do is let you hear what this actually sounds like.
Absolutely. So, picture this. You send a colleague an email, perhaps a gentle reminder about a project. You write, I wish to draw your immediate attention to the fact that the deadline for the aforementioned project has now elapsed. Please ensure that the relevant documentation is submitted without further delay.
Now, is that grammatically correct?
Perfectly. Impeccable.
Is it formal?
Absolutely. Every word carefully selected.
Does it sound polite?
It sounds like a letter from a government department threatening a fine. It is the linguistic equivalent of a cold stare.
Exactly. It sounds like a reprimand. It sounds like the person writing it is angry, or at the very least, deeply unimpressed. Now compare that, JD, to this. Hey, just a quick note. The deadline for the project has passed. Could you get the documents over to me when you get a chance? Thanks so much.
Casual, friendly, and yet, it is absolutely professional. Nobody reads that and thinks this person is unprofessional or disrespectful. They think, right, friendly colleague, deadline reminder, no problem at all.
The difference is not the vocabulary. The difference is what the language signals about the relationship. The first version, with all its formality, actively creates distance between the two people. The second version says, we are on the same team. We are working together.
And this, truly, is the key insight for today. Formal language, at its core, is designed to create distance. That is actually its fundamental purpose. When you are writing to a judge or a government minister, or someone you genuinely do not know at all, distance can be entirely appropriate. That distance can, in very specific contexts, even signal a profound respect.
But in most everyday professional situations, emails to colleagues you interact with daily, conversations with clients you have met before, even meetings with your direct manager, that distance reads as coldness, or perhaps superiority, or, at its worst, outright hostility, and it costs you connection.
Now, here is where it gets truly interesting. Because there is a very specific toolkit that native speakers use to navigate that tricky, professional, but warm zone. And once you see them, once you hear them, you will start noticing them everywhere.
The first tool is softeners. These are those tiny, unassuming words and phrases that just take the sharp edge off a direct request or statement. Words and phrases like just, a quick, by any chance, I wonder if, would you mind?
So instead of the blunt command, send me the report by Friday, you say, would you mind sending me the report by Friday?
Same request, same deadline, but a completely, utterly different feeling.
Instead of the categorical statement, this is incorrect, you say, I think there might be a small issue here. I just wanted to check.
Or instead of, I require clarification, you say, could I just check something with you quickly?
That word just is doing enormous invisible work in British English. It is one of the great politeness tools of our language. I just wanted to check. Just a quick question. I just wondered if. That just signals. This is not a big deal. I am not making demands. We are having a relaxed conversation.
Even if it is, in fact, a very big deal.
Even if it is, yes, the just is not dishonest. It is a social lubricant. It keeps the interaction smooth and flowing.
The second tool is question framing. Instead of stating what you want, you ask for it, even when you are clearly in a position to simply request it. This is absolutely massive in British professional culture, and it translates beautifully into international English.
So a manager might say, do you think you could have that finished by Thursday? Not, have it finished by Thursday. The question form hands a tiny bit of power back to the other person. It acknowledges that they have agency, that they are a thinking individual, and that acknowledgement, even when it is slightly fictional, is extraordinarily polite.
We do this constantly without even realizing we are doing it. Would it be possible to, is there any chance you could, I do not suppose you have. That last one is particularly wonderfully British.
I do not suppose you have a minute. That is a very British way of making a request that subtly assumes the answer might be no, which paradoxically makes it incredibly easy for the other person to say yes.
Because you have already done the work of imagining their perspective. You have already said, I recognize you might be busy. I'm not demanding your time. I am merely asking.
And the third tool, this one is my personal favorite, is what I would call the collaborative frame. Instead of presenting your point of view as simply correct, as a closed fact, you frame it as something you are working out together.
So instead of, that approach will not work, you say, I'm wondering if we might run into some issues with that approach. What are your thoughts?
Instead of, you are wrong about the timeline, you say, I just want to make sure I have understood the timeline correctly. Can we go through it together?
The core content is almost identical. You still think the timeline is wrong. You still believe the approach has problems. But you are inviting the other person into the conversation rather than shutting them out of it. You are respecting their contribution.
And here is the truly beautiful thing about these tools. Softeners, question framing, collaborative framing. None of them require complex vocabulary. None of them require a formal register. They work just as well in casual language as they do in formal language.
In fact, they work better in casual language, most of the time. Because when you combine warmth signals with highly sophisticated, overly formal vocabulary, you sometimes cancel them out entirely. The warmth gets completely lost in the sheer formality.
Now, I do want to be fair to formal English, because it absolutely has its place. There are moments when you genuinely want that distance. A formal complaint letter, a legal document, an official application. When you are writing to someone in a position of significant authority for the very first time.
In those specific cases, the formality itself communicates. I take this seriously. I'm treating this interaction with appropriate gravity and respect for your position.
But even then, even in a formal complaint letter, the most effective ones still have what I would call a human anchor. A tiny moment where the reader remembers they are dealing with a person, not just a file or a number.
Something as small as, I appreciate you taking the time to read this, or, I understand this may require some time to investigate. Those tiny acknowledgments of the other person's perspective, those are the essence of politeness, even inside a highly formal register.
Right. So the principle holds everywhere. Politeness is not about the level of your language. It is about whether the other person feels seen, heard, and respected. And you can create that feeling at any register.
High register or low register, what truly matters is warmth. And warmth is built through softeners, through question framing, through collaborative language, and crucially, through acknowledging the other person's perspective.
Let us do a lightning-fast recap, because we have covered quite a lot of ground today.
Point 1. Formal does not mean polite. Formal means creating distance through your language register. Polite means making the other person feel respected and considered. These are distinct, separate things.
Point 2. The tools of politeness. Softeners like just and by any chance. Question framing like would you mind and is there any chance? And collaborative framing like what do you think? These work at any register. They work in casual conversation. They work in professional emails. They work everywhere.
Point 3. Most of the time, in most everyday professional situations, warm and casual beats formal and cold. Your colleagues, your clients, your manager, they want to feel like they are working with a human being who respects them. Not receiving correspondence from an anonymous government agency.
Unless you are actually corresponding with a government agency, in which case, formality away.
Now, your challenge for this week. And this one is going to feel a little uncomfortable, which is exactly why we are assigning it. We want you to notice the shift.
Find one email you need to write, or one conversation you need to have, where you would normally, instinctively, reach for formal language, because it feels safer or more impressive. A message to a manager, a follow-up with a client. Anything where you feel the pressure to sound particularly sophisticated.
And instead of writing the formal version, write the warm version. Use just. Use question framing. Write it the way you would talk to someone you respect but feel comfortable with.
Then send it, and pay very close attention to how people respond.
We think you will be genuinely surprised. Not because casual is always inherently better, but because warmth is almost always better. And once you feel the difference in the response you get, you will never reach for cold formality again out of sheer habit.
We would love to hear how it goes. What did you write? How did you frame it? And crucially, what was the most surprising or unexpected reaction you got?
We are curious to hear if it felt uncomfortable at first, and then, what shifted? Did you notice a difference in the energy of the response? Or the relationship? Tell us your story in the comments. We read every single one.
And if you have a question about a specific situation, a type of email you are struggling with, a conversation at work where you never quite know how to pitch the level, ask us in the comments. We might even answer it in a future episode.
Now, next week.
Next week, we are exploring something that comes up constantly in real English conversations, but almost nobody teaches explicitly. How native speakers use repetition and echo to show they are listening. Not just and yes. But the specific way, we reflect back words, rephrase what someone has said, and mirror their language to build genuine connection in real time.
It is one of those things that sounds deceptively simple, but transforms how you come across in conversation almost immediately. That is next week on Mr. and Mrs. Oxford.
Until then, find that email, write the warm version, hit send.
See you next week.